The Texas sun hung heavy over the quiet streets of Cedar Rock, a town just big enough to have a Walmart but small enough that everyone knew Jake Carter's name, or at least, they used to. Jake adjusted the strap of his prosthetic leg as he limped toward his rusted pickup truck. The desert heat made the metal scorching, and the dull ache where flesh met machine never really went away. 4 years since the IED in Helmand Province. 4 years of learning to walk again. 4 years of silence from the country he'd bled for. The garage where he worked, Hank's Auto Repair, was the only place that'd hire him when he got back. Hank, a Vietnam vet with a cigar permanently lodged between his teeth, had just grunted and tossed him a wrench on day one. No pity. Jake liked that. But today, the shop's usual rhythm of clanging metal and classic rock was shattered by shouting from across the street. Old Man Thompson, a Korean War veteran in his 80s, stood on his porch like a general defending a fort. His hands shook, but his voice didn't. "You're not taking my land, Holloway." Richard Holloway, slicked back hair, tailored suit, and a smile that never reached his eyes, leaned against his black Escalade. 2 beefy security guys flanked him, arms crossed. "Now, Earl," Holloway said, voice oozing fake sympathy. "This development'll bring jobs. Progress. You're sitting on prime riverfront property. Be a patriot. Help your community." Jake's grip tightened on the wrench in his pocket. He knew Holloway's game. Buy land cheap, flip it for millions. And if folks refused? Suddenly code violations appeared. Tax audits, mysterious fires. Thompson spat in the dirt. "I built this house with my hands in '62. My Martha's buried out back. You'll drag me out feet first." Holloway sighed, like a parent scolding a stubborn child. Then he nodded to his men. Jake moved before he thought. "Problem here?" Jake stepped between Thompson and the security goons. His prosthetic clicked loudly on the pavement. Holloway's smile flickered. "Ah, the war hero." He said it like a joke. "This doesn't concern you, Corporal." One of the guards smirked. "Yeah, lose the hero complex, gimp." Jake's pulse roared in his ears. He'd heard worse. But Thompson's land? That was different. The old man had sat with Jake's mom when his deployment letters stopped coming. Had left casseroles on their porch when the VA paperwork choked their mailbox. "Sheriff knows you're here?" Jake kept his voice low. Holloway laughed. "Mike Dawson? He's golfing with my uncle this weekend." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Final offer, Earl. Sign today, or we condemn tomorrow." Thompson's hands trembled as he tore the check in half. Holloway's smile died. Wrong move. He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, Jake. Heard you applied for that small business loan. Shame about the denial." Jake froze. He'd told no one about the loan, except the bank manager, who'd grinned and said, "We'll call you." The Escalade peeled away, kicking dust onto Thompson's American flag. That night, Jake sat on Thompson's porch, passing a bottle of bourbon between them. The old man stared at the stars. "They'll be back," Thompson muttered. Jake nodded. Holloway always won. He owned half the county board. The sheriff's department turned blind eyes. Even the local paper called him a visionary entrepreneur. But then Thompson said the words that changed everything. "Found these in my attic." He tossed Jake a yellowed folder. Inside, photos of Holloway's father shaking hands with a known cartel boss in the '90s. And ledger pages, numbers, dates. Proof they laundered money through their construction biz, Thompson said. Holloway's just prettier about it now. Jake's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, the ER nurse who'd stitched him up last winter after a nightmare made him punch a wall. "You okay?" "Heard about today?" He wasn't. But for the first time in years, Jake Carter smiled. Because war had taught him this. Even the strongest walls have weak points. And Richard Holloway was about to learn that too. Jake spread the photos across Sarah's kitchen table under the sickly glow of a flickering bulb. The nurse traced a finger over a ledger entry. $250,000, October 12th, 1998. Cement, and frowned. "This is evidence, not a weapon," she said. "You take this to the FBI. Holloway's lawyers bury it before lunch." Jake rotated a shot of Holloway's father unloading crates with a man whose face was tattooed with teardrops. "Then we find someone it can hurt." Sarah's apartment smelled like antiseptic and lavender, a clash of ER shifts and attempts at normalcy. She'd patched up enough gunshot wounds to recognize a man gearing for war. "You're not a sniper anymore, Jake. This town's a different kind of battlefield." Outside, a motorcycle roared past. Jake's prosthetic leg tapped a restless Morse code against the linoleum. "That's why I need Mike." Mike Dawson met them at the abandoned drive-in, his patrol car's headlights cutting through the kudzu vines swallowing the screen. The sheriff's badge on his chest looked heavier than it had in high school. "You're asking me to commit career suicide," Mike hissed, flipping through the photos. "Holloway's uncle is the county DA." Jake tossed him a burner phone. "Then leak it anonymously. Or wait." He yanked a ledger page from Mike's hand. "Maybe you'd rather explain why your signature's on Holloway's charity fundraiser permits last year." Mike's face drained. Sarah gasped. "You knew?" she whispered. "Not about Thompson." Mike's fist slammed the hood. "I turned a blind eye to some zoning crap, not—" He gestured at the cartel photos. "This." A screech owl screamed in the pines. The three childhood friends stood in the red glow of taillights, the truth like a live grenade at their feet. Mike pocketed the phone. "I'll get you access to Holloway's office, one night. After that, we're even." Holloway Development's headquarters was a glass and steel monstrosity downtown, guarded by a retired cop named Ruiz who owed Jake for saving his nephew in Afghanistan. "Alarm's off till 3 a.m., Ruiz muttered, handing Jake a keycard. "Cameras loop for 12 minutes. You didn't get this from me." Inside, Jake's flashlight exposed a shrine to greed. Framed articles. Top 30 under 30. A golf putter engraved "Screw the Little Guy," and, behind a fake bookshelf, a safe. Sarah, hacking Holloway's computer, hissed, "Bingo, offshore accounts. Look at the transfers. $20,000 monthly to a Blackthorn LLC." Jake pried the safe with a crowbar. Folders spilled out. Deeds signed under duress, notarized threats, and a black leather book. The moment Jake flipped it open, his blood iced over. Page 1. Earl Thompson, offer $10,000. If refuses, call CPS re granddaughter's drug use. Page 14. Jake Carter, deny loan. Flag for IRS audit. Sarah's nails dug into his arm. "This isn't business. It's a hit list." A floorboard creaked above them. Holloway's voice dripped from the shadows. "Marines, always so predictable." Security floodlights blinded them. 4 men with pistols descended the stairs. Holloway twirled Jake's car keys. "Ruiz texted me. Guess Semper Fi doesn't mean shit anymore." Jake shoved Sarah toward the fire exit. "Run!" As a bullet shattered the monitor behind her. He ducked behind a desk, heart hammering. No rifle, no squad. Just a wrench and a bum leg against 4 guns. Then the window exploded. A '72 Chevy pickup plowed through the lobby, sending Holloway diving behind a potted fern. Behind the wheel, Mr. Thompson, Winchester rifle propped out the window. "Y'all forget I fought in Korea?" he bellowed, racking the shotgun. Chaos erupted. Jake lunged for Holloway, tackling him into a glass conference table. The developer's nose crunched under his fist. "Who's Blackthorn?" Jake snarled. Holloway spat blood. "You're dead either way. They own this state." Sirens wailed. Mike's patrol car skidded outside, lights flashing. The goons bolted. Sarah reappeared, clutching the black book. "I got it all on video, every damn page." Holloway laughed wildly. "And what?" You'll post it online? I'll be out on bail before... Jake leaned in, whispering something that made Holloway's face go gray. At dawn, the local news broke 3 stories simultaneously. 1. Holloway arrested for racketeering, courtesy of Mike's anonymous tip. 2. Blackthorn LLC tied to a U.S. senator, leaked by a hacker collective Sarah knew from nursing school. 3. A viral video. Holloway sobbing to Jake. They'll kill me if you release those photos. By noon, protesters surrounded the courthouse. By dusk, the FBI froze Holloway's assets. And Jake? He stood on Thompson's porch, watching the old man rebuild his fence. Told you they'd be back, Thompson grunted, hammering a nail. Sarah squeezed Jake's hand. What did you say to Holloway? Jake smiled for the first time in years. Semper Fi. The flames reached 20 feet into the Texas sky by the time Jake's truck skidded to a stop in front of Semper Fi Auto. The heat slapped his face like an open palm. No. His tools, his savings, his future, reduced to popping metal and black smoke. Behind him, Mike's patrol car door slammed. Jake, don't... But Jake was already running into the inferno. The roof groaned. A support beam crashed where his workbench had been. Through the smoke, a glint caught his eye. The steel lockbox under the counter. He dove, grabbed it, and rolled as the ceiling collapsed behind him. Outside, coughing up ash, Jake pried open the box. Inside, his Purple Heart, his discharge papers, and a single bullet. Sarah arrived, still in her ER scrubs. Her hands shook as she wiped soot from his face. Holloway's still in jail. This wasn't him. Mike radioed for backup, then froze. Guys, look. Spray painted on the sidewalk in blood-red letters. Blackthorn says hello. Senator Richard Vaughn's mansion loomed over Austin like a castle, all marble columns and armed guards. On TV, his press secretary called Jake's evidence a desperate smear by radical elements. But in a downtown parking garage, a nervous aide slipped Sarah a USB drive. Vaughn's laundering Blackthorn money through veterans' charities, the aide whispered. He's hosting a gala tonight. The proof's there. Jake studied the gala invite. Honoring our heroes, with Vaughn's signature gold-embossed eagle. The hypocrisy burned worse than the garage fire. Mike paled. That place'll be swarming with Secret Service. Sarah loaded the USB files onto her phone. We need someone inside. Jake's fingers closed around the bullet in his pocket. I've got an idea. The tuxedo itched like a lie. Jake adjusted his tie in the limo's mirror, his prosthetic leg hidden under tailored slacks. The invite had worked. No one questioned a decorated veteran guest, especially one with a silver star. Remember, Sarah's voice crackled in his earpiece, we just need photos of Vaughn with Blackthorn's CEO. The USB links the money, but... Sir, the driver eyed him. You okay? Jake realized he'd been gripping his thigh where the leg ended. Peachy. The gala was a grotesque parody of patriotism. Ice sculptures of eagles melted beside a buffet costing more than Jake's annual rent. Uniformed soldiers stood as props while politicians patted their own backs. And there, at the center, Senator Vaughn, shaking hands with a silver-haired man in a $10,000 suit. Blackthorn's CEO. Jake's phone camera clicked silently. Then Vaughn spotted him. Corporal Carter. Vaughn's smile didn't reach his shark eyes. What an honor. His grip crushed Jake's fingers. Though I hear you've been misled about my work. Jake forced a grin. Just wanted to thank you for supporting vets, sir. Vaughn leaned in, whiskey breath hot. I know about the USB. Hand it over, or your nurse friend loses her license by morning. A bead of sweat trickled down Jake's spine. They'd anticipated this. Sure. Jake fake reached for his pocket, then accidentally spilled champagne on Vaughn's suit. As the senator cursed, Jake slipped Vaughn's phone from his jacket. Sarah's voice hissed in his earpiece. "They're locking the doors." The ballroom screens flickered from Vaughn's campaign ad to something else entirely. Video footage. Vaughn taking a briefcase of cash from Blackthorn's CEO. Audio. "Once we gut the VA contracts, the profits go offshore." Text messages. "Orders to deal with Jake and Thompson." The crowd gasped. Phones lit up recording. Vaughn screamed at text to kill the feed, but it was too late. Sarah's voice. "I'm in the system. Every major news outlet just got the files. Mike's arresting Blackthorn's guys now." Vaughn turned to Jake, face purple with rage. "You're dead." Jake smiled. "Semper Fi, Senator." Then he punched Vaughn so hard the man somersaulted into the caviar station. By midnight, Vaughn resigned mid-scandal. Blackthorn's assets were seized. Holloway, now singing like a canary to avoid life in prison, implicated half the county government. At Thompson's rebuilt porch, Sarah stitched Jake's split knuckles. "You're insane," she muttered. "And kinda heroic." Mike tossed Jake a beer. "Garage insurance payout came through? You rebuilding?" Jake looked at the stars, the same ones he'd navigated by in Afghanistan. Nah, thinking bigger. He slid Sarah the blueprint. "Carter and Thompson Veterans Center." Thompson whooped. "Hell yes, I'll teach kids to shoot properly." Sarah kissed Jake's bruised cheek. "We'll need a medical wing." As the coyotes howled in the distance, Jake finally felt it, the peace he'd fought for. Not in medals or revenge, but in this. Home. 6 months later, the Carter and Thompson Veterans Center stood where Holloway's luxury condos were supposed to be. The Texas sun baked the fresh paint as Jake adjusted his tie, the same one he'd worn to Vaughn's gala, now cleaned of champagne and blood. Sarah smoothed his collar. "Nervous?" Jake eyed the crowd. Reporters, veterans, even the governor. Just wished Thompson could have seen this. The old man had passed peacefully 3 weeks prior, his Winchester across his lap and a smile on his face. His last words. "Don't let the bastards win." Mike, now sheriff, cleared his throat at the podium. "This center proves what happens when folks stand together." He nodded to Jake. "Take it away, Marine." Jake's voice carried across the parking lot. "This isn't about me. It's about every soldier who came home to silence." He gripped the ribbon. "And every civilian who refused to look away." The scissors flashed. Inside, the center buzzed with activity. Therapy dogs in the PTSD wing, job training in the workshop, Sarah's medical clinic already packed. But as Jake gave a tour to press, a familiar face made his spine stiffen. Daniel Holloway. Richard's younger brother leaned against a support beam, smirking. "Nice place. Shame about the zoning violations." Sarah stepped between them. "Get out." Daniel tossed a business card at Jake's feet. Blackthorn Holdings. "We're rebranding. Senator Vaughn's cellmate sends his regards." By the time Mike arrived, Daniel was gone. But the threat lingered like gunpowder smoke. That night, Jake paced the center's security room, reviewing footage. "Blackthorn's back," he growled. "They're using shell companies to buy up foreclosed veteran homes." Sarah pulled up tax records. Same pattern as before. Lowball offers, then accidental fires. She hesitated. "Jake, they're targeting families of the vets who testified against Vaughn." Mike slammed his coffee down. "I'll raid every..." "No." Jake zoomed in on Daniel, shaking hands with a VA official. "They learned from last time. This fight needs brains, not bullets." He pulled Thompson's old shoebox from the shelf. Inside, the sniper's notebook where the old man had tracked Holloway's movements for years. Sarah's eyes widened at the meticulous records. "This is intel," Jake finished. "Time we fight like insurgents." 3 days later, Jake accidentally ran into Daniel at a veteran's funeral. "Sorry for your loss," Daniel mocked, eyeing Jake's dress blues. "How many more will it take before you quit?" Jake let his voice crack. "Just leave them alone, please." Daniel took the bait like a starving fish. "Or what? You'll cry to the media again?" He leaned in. "Meet me tomorrow. Let's discuss terms." The text came at 3 a.m. Lone Star Truck Stop. Come alone. The truck stop's flickering neon lit Daniel's smug face as he unfolded Jake's surrender papers, a fake deed to the sender. "Smart man," Daniel gloated, signing. Then his phone rang. "Code Black. We're—" Gunshots exploded through the speaker. Jake smiled. "That's your Reno office getting raided right now." Daniel lunged, just as Mike's deputies emerged from the shadows. "You set me up," Daniel spat. Sarah stepped forward, live streaming on her phone. "Nope, you confessed to everything." She tilted the screen, 50,000 viewers and climbing. Mike cuffed Daniel. "Blackthorn's done, again." At Thompson's grave the next morning, Jake left 2 items. 1. The signed surrender papers, now framed. 2. A single bullet. Sarah threaded her fingers through his. "What now?" Jake watched the sunrise paint the center's walls gold. "We rebuild, again." The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, the kind of thick government parchment that made Jake's hands twitch before he even opened it. Sarah watched as he unfolded the paper, his calloused fingers tracing the embossed seal at the top. "Department of the Navy." "Orders?" she asked, her voice tight. Jake's jaw worked silently as he read. Then, without a word, he passed it to her. "Lieutenant Jacob Carter, retired, is hereby requested to report to Naval Station Norfolk." Sarah's breath caught. "Regarding the decommissioning of USS Liberty and final disposition of classified materials related to Operation Midnight Echo." The name hit Jake like a mortar round. Midnight Echo. The mission that had cost him his leg. The mission that didn't officially exist. The VA hospital smelled the same as it had 5 years ago. Antiseptic and despair. Dr. Ruiz, no relation to the security guard, adjusted his glasses as he flipped through Jake's file. PTSD episodes increasing? Jake's prosthetic tapped a staccato rhythm on the linoleum. Dreams, the kind where you wake up screaming but don't remember why. Across the room, a young Marine, couldn't have been more than 19, rocked silently in his wheelchair, staring at the wall where his legs used to be. Ruiz followed Jake's gaze. "You know we can't clear you for travel without—" "I'm going," Jake said. "That's not a request." Sarah's hand found his. "Then we're going together." The naval base buzzed with the kind of organized chaos only the military could create. Sailors in crisp whites dodged forklifts hauling torpedoes, while a PA system squawked about a missing admiral's dog. Commander Alvarez met them at the pier, her salt and pepper bun tight enough to crack walnuts. "Carter." She nodded at his leg. "Still slowing you down?" Jake ignored the jab. "Why am I really here, Commander?" Alvarez's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Because the Liberty sinks tomorrow, and the brass want all her secrets to drown with her." She led them to a rusted-out submarine docked at Pier 12. Up close, the Liberty looked like what she was, a relic from a war nobody wanted to remember. The interior smelled of diesel and something darker. Jake's fingers brushed a bulkhead scarred by fire. "This is where Martinez bought it." His voice echoed in the narrow passageway. "Pulled 3 men out before the blast." Sarah squeezed his shoulder as Alvarez opened a sealed compartment. Inside, a single steel locker hummed with climate control. "Operation Midnight Echo," Alvarez said. "Unofficial recon mission into Iranian waters. You were never there. Neither was the Liberty." Jake's stomach twisted. "Then why?" "Because someone talked." Alvarez keyed in a code. The locker hissed open, revealing files stamped "Eyes Only" and a familiar face in the surveillance photos. Senator Vaughn, younger, in uniform, shaking hands with an Iranian officer. Sarah sucked in a breath. "That's treason." Alvarez nodded. "Which is why Vaughn had the Liberty scuttled after your mission, buried the survivors under NDAs." She handed Jake a pistol. "Until now." The nursing home reeked of bleach and regret. Admiral James Corwin, retired, sat by the window, his once commanding frame reduced to bones under a VA blanket. "Alzheimer's," the nurse said. "Couldn't remember breakfast." But when Jake said "Midnight Echo," the old man's eyes snapped clear as cut glass. "You." Corwin's voice was sandpaper on steel. "They said you burned alive." Jake leaned in. "Who gave the order to sink us?" Corwin's gnarled hand trembled as he pointed at Vaughn's photo. Him, for a 10% stake in Blackthorn's oil fields. A tear cut through his wrinkles. "I signed the damn paperwork." Sarah hit record on her phone just as Corwin whispered the coordinates where the Liberty's logs were hidden. The sun was rising over Chesapeake Bay when Jake tossed the weighted duffel into the water. The Liberty's logs inside would reach the Washington Post by noon. Sarah pocketed her phone. "Vaughn will know it was you." Jake watched the ripples fade. "Let him come." Somewhere behind them, a bugle played reveille. The war wasn't over. But for the first time in years, Jake Carter stood straight.
Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts. Subscribe now and never miss a story that will leave you speechless.